Welcome to episode 132 of the XS Noize Podcast. I'm Mark Millar. Thanks for listening. In this interview, I speak to Colin Angus from the Shamen about Moship, his new project with Digital Habitat. If you missed the previous episode, I spoke to Dan Kroll to discuss his latest album, Fools. So check it out, and if you like the podcast, please subscribe on your favourite listening platform, give us a rating, and leave a comment. Before we begin, here's Daniel Lynch with what's been happening on XS Noize this week.
In the reviews section, Sam Williams has been listening to the new self-titled album from Boy and Bear. It's the Australian indie rock band's fifth album and their first to be released independently. Sam says the band's decision to record with a hybrid of analogue and digital techniques leads to a new, slightly more polished sound, but everything's kept down to earth by singer Dave Hosking's lyrics. Also on the site we have tour news from the Murder Capital, new music from the Boo Radleys, and a feature exploring the link between poker and music videos. And the Foo Fighters continue the build-up to the release of their 11th album with the release of an epic 10-minute track with accompanying short film. The Teacher is the fourth single from But Here We Are. Watch it now at xsnoize.com.
Moship is an electronic music duo consisting of Colin Angus and Digital Habitat. The duo released their first track, A2E, featuring Michael Horowitz, The Antidote to Everything, on the 80th anniversary of Bicycle Day. This is Colin's first AI interview about the new band. The Shamen's originator answers questions about the project via AIngus, Moship's AI aide. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the XS Noize Podcast with Colin Angus from Moship. Hi Colin, welcome to the XS Noize Podcast.
Hi Mark, and thanks for having me on XS Noize Podcast.
It's great to have you on the podcast, Colin. Going back to the start, can you remember the first band or artist that made you pay attention to electronic music?
My first taste of electronica, that was certainly Popcorn by Hot Butter, an early 70s disco instrumental with propulsive rhythm and futuristic synthetic lead line. It was quite a sensation at the time. There was an acidic cover version in '88, which was fabulous to hear again in context of the rave New World, a top time-travelling composition.
Moship released the excellent A2E featuring Michael Horowitz on the 80th anniversary of Bicycle Day. Bicycle Day commemorates the first ever intentional LSD trip by Swiss chemist Albert Hofmann. Was the track written especially for the anniversary?
A2E was made to be a kind of spoken word antidote to the other Moship material, which features sung vocals from myself and Julissa. Michael's oratory contrasting very much with that. Although the last track to be recorded, A2E, turned out to be the first release, as the imminent 80th Bicycle Day anniversary was simply too opportune to miss.
The lyrics to A2E are an extended mix of a talk Michael gave at the World Psychedelic Forum in 2006, honouring Albert Hofmann. Do you plan to use recordings of Michael on future Moship tracks?
Well, perhaps if Mike should give another memorable address at a similarly momentous lysergic event, say LSD 25 in the year 2025, a hypothetical world conference to be held in the future first country to legalise the antidote.
What was your first psychedelic experience and what can you remember about it?
Being but 6 years old in '67 was a magical way to experience psychedelia in pop culture at the time. From the pop psych sounds of the era, to the groovy visual imagery that then abounded in films and television. The shrooms didn't feature till secondary school, growing on the academy playing field to be gathered and consumed at mid-afternoon break. I remember thinking, now this is an education.
Do you still take psychedelics, and if so, how often?
Suffice to say, one is occasionally aware of the growing popularity of DMT vape pens.
When did you meet Digital Habitat?
Moship came about after Digital Habitat invited yours truly to provide voice and guitar embellishments for an instrumental track he was producing, which turned out so psych and spacey that we resolved to continue making music together as Moship.
When did you decide to form Moship with Digital Habitat, and when did you begin writing music together?
At a performance by Violetta in the Old St Pancras Church in 2018.
Moship have also released the A2E Ambience and A2E Rhythms EPs. Did you both work on the music together in a studio, or did you record remotely?
Digital Habitat, Michael and myself have all enjoyed being able to interact remotely via today's interconnective technology. The easy facilitation is inspiring and highly conducive to co-creativity.
Moship blend psychedelia, house, ambient and dub elements. What form do you most enjoy writing?
In my case, I'm more concerned with the songwriting aspects of Moship productions, while Digital Habitat provides the stylistic flavours for the different mixes of each track.
What is your go-to instruments for writing music?
These days, whenever inspiration strikes, which is usually in the form of a melody or lyric, I unfailingly reach for the nearest guitar. In the past, I've written on keyboard as well, but rarely for these new Moship tracks.
Are there any plans for more Moship releases, or an album perhaps?
There is a collection of Moship tracks in the can, or rather on file, to constitute an album and further releases.
Also, are there any plans for live shows?
Live shows? Lord knows.
It's great that you're back and to hear your voice and guitar sound on new music. It's been a long time since your last project. How does it feel to be back?
Certainly have enjoyed making the new music and delighted that some people out there are liking it.
How have you been spending your time while you have been away from music?
Leading a peaceful, civilised and leisurely existence.
How excited are you with AI? And what possibilities do you think it can have for the future of music?
AI shows immense and disruptive promise, but the idea that it will eventually attain sentient intelligence like a human seems specious, being based on the assumption that the brain is merely a biocomputer, which it is not. Not aware of any stupendous musical AI accomplishments as yet, but some of the visual artworks are quite extraordinary, flubbery fingers notwithstanding.
The Shamen achieved huge success in the early 90s. The band went from being an underground band to mainstream international success with Ebenezer Good and the 1992 Boss Drum album. How did that feel for you?
Certainly the pressures of success were easier to deal with than the travails of failure. The Potastic Shamen era was hugely enjoyable, especially all the bad boy controversy. Indeed, it could only have been better if Wilson had been around to share his deserved place amid it all. 32-year anniversary as this is written, by the way.
Can you remember the first time you heard one of your songs on the radio?
Think that might have been Happy Days from the first Shamen EP on Pete Flanagan's Sippo subsidiary One Big Guitar, played on the John Peel Show.
Ebenezer Good was the Shamen's biggest and most controversial hit. It still gets talked about and played today. Do you ever look back and snigger about how you got away with it?
Ebenezer was something of a monster piece, undoubtedly. Looking back at just how vibed on the frenzy of the pop culture's zeitgeist we were, does now raise a chuckle indeed.
The last studio album from the Shamen was UV in 1998. Why did you decide to call time on the band after that?
By the time of UV, the 90s were drawing to a close and the band had been in existence for more than a decade. We had spread the message and had the hits, so it seemed like a timely point to dematerialise. Glad we did too. Life on the road is strictly for the young and resilient, if truth be told.
What is your favourite deep cut from one of your albums?
The most profound Shamen cut is surely Re-Evolution with Terence McKenna, the very bard of hyperspace himself, tracking psychedelic consciousness from the dawn of thought to the end of time.
If people want to understand your music, what are the 5 songs they should listen to?
The aforementioned Re-Evolution, Ebenezer Good, Forever People by the Shamen, Gene Swarm by Pablo Santos featuring Indigenous, and 8-2-E by Moship.
Do you still keep in touch with Mr. C?
Not directly from, but occasionally hear of via third party. Hear tell the former shamanic sage recently, urging others to wear the face nappy and take the arm spear. Not such good advice, methinks.
I have saw online that Moship has created a huge buzz amongst fans of the Shamen. They are asking about reissues and unreleased material seeing the light of day. Could this happen? Is there anything left in the vaults?
Alas, the vaults are void as those beneath the Bank of England. Maybe there are some live recordings, but all OLI studio tracks have now been released.
Could there be a day when the Shamen release new music again?
Only if we can gain access to some form of rejuvenation technology.
What are your highlights from your time in the Shamen?
Highlights include Glastonbury 92, being number 1 on top of the pops, performing Re-Evolution live on stage with McKenna in San Francisco, and introducing acid house to the Soviet Union.
If you could go back and relive one musical moment from your career, what would it be?
Receiving my prestigious Novello award, only this time I would actually attend the ceremony.
For us music fans, music is the soundtrack to our memories. What song or album, when you listen to it, brings back the best memories for you?
In my case, Real Life by Corporation of One, time-travelling transport back to the heady cave of rave via Simple Minds and Queen, skillfully mashed by Freddie Bastone.
Which song or album is your guilty pleasure?
As a pop picker having many guilty pleasures, it's difficult to narrow down to one choice, but SOS by ABBA is a genius example.
So Colin, is there anything else you would like to mention? Anything else coming up?
That's about it from me, thanks Mark, other than to say hi to all listeners out there who enjoy sounds of the old group or the new combo, and do watch out for the next Moship release which will feature Julissa. Cheers everyone.